And we are live. Welcome to Olivia's Stories, ladies and gentlemen. Story number 1.
So, I'm not a big Reddit poster, but after what happened to me, I had to share it somewhere. I feel like I've been thrown into some twisted movie plot. It had been a stressful week at work, so I decided to take a little break, treating myself to a hot cup of coffee at Nordlys Cafe, a small place I'd come to love in Oslo. The vintage wooden tables, dim lighting, and faint aroma of freshly ground coffee beans always provided me a comforting escape from the hustle and bustle of the city. After placing my order at the counter, I found a cozy corner spot by the window, giving me a panoramic view of the Oslo streets. As I waited for my coffee, I started getting lost in thoughts, watching people pass by and wondering about their stories. Maybe it's silly, but I always felt everyone had a secret, some hidden tale they weren't sharing with the world. As I was lost in this thought, my ears caught onto a familiar voice. At first, I thought I was imagining things, but when I looked over, there she was. Lyria, my beautiful wife. She was seated a few tables away, laughing with someone. That someone was Juna, her closest friend from college. A small smirk formed on my lips. I thought about how I could surprise her, maybe send over a dessert or just pop by their table for a quick hug. But something stopped me. Something about their hushed tones, the way Juna kept looking around as if to ensure no one was listening. My heart started racing as I realized that Lyria hadn't seen me yet. I leaned back into my chair, carefully hiding behind the menu. I told myself I was just being paranoid. But then I heard it. My name. I don't know, Juna. Sometimes I feel like I made a mistake with Zephyr. My heart sank. The words hit like a punch in the gut. I wanted to shout, to stand up and ask her directly what she meant. But my body froze, and I continued to listen, hoping against hope that I'd misunderstood or that there would be some clarification. But what followed only confirmed my fears, hinting at secrets, betrayals, and a life I didn't know my wife was living. What would you do if you were in my shoes? Would you confront her immediately or try to gather more evidence? I'm lost, Reddit. Edit. Thank you for the supportive comments. I never expected this post to get so much attention. I'll keep you updated on what unfolds next. Okay guys, first off, thanks for all the comments and DMs from my last post. I'm still trying to process what I heard, but here's an update from the cafe. So there I was, heart pounding in my ears as my wife's voice continued to float over from her table. The atmosphere in Nordlys Cafe shifted for me. What was once a haven now felt like a trap. Every tick of the wall clock felt deafening. Every sip of coffee tasted bitter. Juna, Lyria started, her voice a mix of sadness and desperation. Do you remember that trip I took to Bergen a few months ago? Juna nodded, giving her an encouraging look. Yeah, the business conference, right? Lyria took a deep breath, her fingers playing with the napkin on the table. There was someone there. His name's Thane. I could hear Juna gasp softly. Lyria, are you saying... Lyria bit her lip, hesitating. I don't know how it happened, Juna. One evening, after a session, a group of us went out for drinks, and that's when I met him. He's charismatic, funny, and seemed so interested in my thoughts, my dreams. I was trying hard to hold back my emotions, but hearing her talk about this Thane guy with such fondness, I felt like a dagger was twisting in my chest. This couldn't be happening. Not Lyria. We had shared our dreams. Our love story was the stuff of fairy tales. Or so I had believed. Juna's voice brought me back. But you and Zephyr, you two seemed so perfect. Why would you even think about someone else? Lyria looked down, her voice barely audible. Sometimes, Juna, life isn't about the perfect moments. It's about the real ones. With Zephyr, everything has become so routine, so predictable. With Thane, even for that short time, it felt alive. Now, I'm not proud of this, but at that moment, I was fuming. I wanted to rush over, confront her, ask her how she could do this to us, to our love. But instead, I hid. Behind that damned menu, my shield from the cruel reality unfolding before me. It was a mix of fear, disbelief, and not wanting to make a scene. Reddit, I need your advice again. How do I approach this situation? I don't want to lose my wife, but I can't live with this secret either. Is there a way to heal? To rebuild trust? Or is it already too late? Hey, it's me again. Thanks for the flood of responses on the last update. I can't believe how many of you are invested in my mess of a life. I've read through every single comment, and your support means the world to me. Here's what happened next. It had been a few days since the cafe incident, and the tension at home was palpable. Lyria and I had started to drift, our conversations reduced to mundane pleasantries. I wanted to confront her, but every time I looked into her eyes, I was scared of what I might find. One evening, she was out, probably with Juna again, or so she said. After pacing around our apartment, debating with myself whether to snoop or not, curiosity got the best of me. What if there were more secrets she was hiding? I needed clarity. I needed the truth. With every intention to clear my doubts, I started with the obvious places: her desk, her nightstand. Nothing. But then, a small bulge in the corner of her sock drawer caught my eye. My hand shook as I pulled out a sleek black phone, something I'd never seen before. It was a model unfamiliar to me, and it wasn't password protected. Hesitantly, I began scrolling. Messages, photos, voicemails, a treasure trove of memories. But not ours, hers, and Thane's. Messages filled with affectionate emojis, secret plans to meet up in hidden corners of Oslo, and even mentions of a cozy cabin in the Lofoten Islands. Pictures of the two of them laughing, toasting drinks, him giving her a delicate necklace. My vision blurred, tears forming. One message stood out, sent from Thane. Can't wait for the day we can finally be together, without hiding. Love you. The air in the room felt suffocating. I felt like an intruder in my own home, viewing glimpses of a life I wasn't a part of. The weight of betrayal pressing down on me was overwhelming. Reddit, I'm broken. Finding that phone. It's like every fear I had came true. I know I invaded her privacy, and that's not cool. But the magnitude of her deception. I don't know if we can bounce back from this. How do I even begin to address this with her? Is it time to walk away? Edit. I've read suggestions about seeking therapy or counseling. It might be a good idea. Also, thanks to those who've shared their own stories of betrayal. Makes me feel less alone in all of this. I'll update soon. So, after discovering the phone and reading through all those messages, I realized I needed answers. But before I approached Lyria, I felt it was necessary to speak with someone who knew the whole story. That someone was Juna. I texted her, asking if we could meet at the city square near the grand statue of King Christian IV. It's a place bustling with tourists and locals, but I figured the open space might diffuse the tension. She hesitated at first, but after a while she agreed. As I waited for her, my anxiety levels skyrocketed. Each passing second felt like hours, and then, amidst the crowd, I spotted her. With a deep breath, I approached. Juna, I began, my voice shaky. I know. She looked taken aback. Know what, Zafir? Why did you want to meet? I said, don't plague Miss Juna. I overheard you and Lyria at the cafe, and I've seen the phone. Juna's face paled, and she fidgeted with her fingers, a nervous habit I remembered from our college days. Zephyr, it's not what you think. Really? Because from where I stand, it looks pretty damn clear. I snapped, anger and pain evident in my voice. Juna hesitated for a moment before letting out a deep sigh. Look, I won't deny it. I knew about Lyria and Thane, but it's not my place to say anything. I was trying to be a good friend. I scoffed. A good friend? By hiding the truth? By watching as my marriage crumbled? She looked down, her eyes glossy. I thought you deserved to know, Zephyr. That's why I let Lyria talk that day at the cafe, hoping you might overhear. My eyes widened in shock. So you knew I was there? She nodded slowly. Yes, but understand this. It was all out of concern for you. I wanted you to find out, confront the situation, maybe even save your marriage. I felt a rush of mixed emotions. Anger, betrayal, sadness, confusion. Everything was overwhelming. So Reddit, here's where I'm at. Juna claims she had my best interests at heart, but can I really trust her? And what do I do about Lyria? The more I dig, the more convoluted this all becomes. Hey Reddit. First off, I can't thank you enough for the continued support and advice. With everything that's been happening, I found myself reflecting on the past, back to the days when everything was simpler. I felt like sharing a bit of our history might give you all, and maybe even myself, some more insight into what went wrong. Rewind to the early 2000s in Tromsø, a picturesque town with its midnight sun and aurora borealis. The place where our story began. Lyria and I were both attending the same high school. It was the sort of school where everyone knew everyone, and the crisp Arctic air filled our lungs with dreams and aspirations. Our story, classic. We were in the school's drama club, preparing for a rendition of Romeo and Juliet. Guess who played the star-crossed lovers? Yep, us. As cliché as it sounds, our onstage romance blossomed into real-life affection. Our dates comprised late-night walks under the auroras, sharing dreams of a future together, holding hands and feeling like the world was at our feet. With her sun-kissed hair and radiant smile, Lyria was the talk of our grade, and she chose me. We had our fair share of ups and downs, of course. Jealousies over co-stars in other plays, petty high school politics, disagreements on our future directions. But we overcame them all. By the time graduation rolled around, we were inseparable. The golden couple of our year. Everyone thought we were destined for each other, and for the longest time, so did I. However, there was this one incident that has been nagging at me lately. Senior year, a rumor went around that Lyria had been seen at a party, getting a bit too close to a guy from the year above. I confronted her, and she cried, swearing it was a misunderstanding, and I believed her. But now, with everything unraveling, I can't help but wonder, was our love story always built on shaky ground? Was I always wearing rose-tinted glasses? There you have it, Reddit, a glimpse into our past. I guess what I'm trying to understand is, was it all just a facade? Did the cracks appear long before I noticed them? It's hard seeing your treasured memories in a new, dubious light. Reddit, it's me again. I need to get something off my chest, something I never thought I'd share. It's about a night I spent with an old friend, Alina. The weight of Lyria's secrets and Juna's revelations felt like a noose tightening around my neck. One evening, needing to clear my head and find solace in something familiar, I headed to our favorite pub in the city, the Northern Lights. To my surprise, seated at the bar with a glass of wine in hand, was Alina. We'd been close friends back in university, sharing classes, laughs, and life's ups and downs. But over time, with commitments and life's chaos, we drifted apart. "Zephyr!" she exclaimed, her eyes wide with surprise. It's been ages. We caught up on life, and the more we talked, the clearer it became that she knew nothing of my marital struggles. There was a comfort in that innocence, a break from the reality I was drowning in. Several rounds in, Alina's gaze shifted. "You know, Zephyr," she began, her voice soft and hesitant. "I always thought you and I, well, we had something. A spark, maybe? I had feelings for you, but you were so in love with Lyria, I never acted on them." I was taken aback. This was a side of Alina I never knew, a chapter of our history I'd completely missed. The evening grew late. The pub's ambiance shifted to a soft, dreamy hue. Vulnerabilities unveiled, and in a mix of alcohol, nostalgia, and a desperate need for connection, we found ourselves in her apartment. The morning sun brought clarity and guilt. As I woke up beside Alina, memories of the night before hit me like a tidal wave. What had I done? Reddit, I've made a mistake. I'm not proud of it. I never imagined myself in this situation. Now I feel I've stooped to Lyria's level. How do I deal with this guilt? Where do I go from here? Edit. To those who've been in a similar situation, your stories are helping me process. To others passing judgment, I get it. I mess it up. I'm only human, trying to find my way through this mess. Hey Reddit. Things have taken a turn that I didn't anticipate. Remember the phone, the secrets, and the betrayal. It's time for some raw truth. Last night, Lyria approached me, her eyes swollen from crying. "Zephyr," she began, her voice trembling. "I can't keep this hidden anymore." My heart raced, preparing for the storm. "Go on," I prompted. She took a deep breath. "Yes, I've been seeing Thane. But it's not as simple as you think. I felt trapped in our marriage. It wasn't because of you or anything specific you did. It was the weight of our past, the weight of being the golden couple. It's as if we were stuck in a narrative we never truly wrote for ourselves. Every choice I made was always in relation to us, never just for me. I was struggling to keep my composure, my mind flashing back to our high school days, our promises, our dreams. "Why Thane?" I managed to ask. She sighed. "With him, I felt free, Zephyr. No baggage, no expectations. It was an escape." I felt my anger surge. "So you just ran away? Instead of talking? Instead of trying?" Her face hardened. "Zephyr, I did try. I tried to talk to you about my dreams, my aspirations. Every time I spoke of wanting something different for myself, you'd brush it off or change the subject. I felt unheard, invisible." The room was thick with tension, unsaid words, and years of emotions. The pain was evident in both our eyes. Reddit, I'm lost. Part of me understands her, while the other part feels completely betrayed. Was I so engrossed in our shared past that I failed to see her present struggles? Were we both to blame? I don't even know where to begin picking up these pieces. I was heading to the market when my phone buzzed. It was Juna. "Can we meet?" she texted, a hint of desperation in her words. Curious, I agreed, and we settled on the local park where the memories of my past confrontations seemed a world away. The moment I saw her, I knew something was amiss. She looked uneasy, shifting from foot to foot. "Zephyr," she began, her voice barely above a whisper, "there's something I haven't told you." I raised an eyebrow, bracing myself for more drama. "What is it now?" Juna took a deep breath. I orchestrated all of this. I introduced Lyria to Thane." The revelation caught me off guard. "Wait, what? Why?" She looked down, her face a canvas of guilt and regret. "I've always been envious of Lyria. She had everything I ever wanted. A successful career, you, a perfect life. And I wanted to create chaos, to see if she'd crumble under pressure." My mind raced, trying to piece together her motives. "So, you knowingly introduced her to Thane, betting on an affair?" Juna nodded slowly. "It was a game to me. I never thought it would go this far. But seeing your pain, your marriage unraveling, I can't keep this to myself any longer." I was livid. "You played with our lives, Juna. For what? Some twisted sense of satisfaction?" Juna looked up, tears in her eyes. "I'm so sorry, Zephyr. I let my envy and bitterness take over. I never realized the consequences." Reddit, I'm at a loss. Another betrayal, another knife in the back. Is anyone truly trustworthy anymore? Was Juna's confession genuine, or is there more lurking beneath the surface? Reddit, it's been a while since I updated. I wish I could say things have improved, but the truth is, I feel more lost than ever. In the aftermath of Juna's shocking confession, I felt as if the ground beneath me had shifted. Every familiar face, every corner of Oslo seemed like a haunting reminder of the betrayals and lies. My trust had been shattered, not just in Lyria, but in everyone I held close. So I began distancing myself. Slowly, I cut ties with friends, co-workers, anyone who had even the slightest connection to the past events. I'd roam the streets of Oslo, hoping the brisk, cold air and the city's beauty could drown out the chaotic thoughts swirling in my mind. One particular day, as I aimlessly wandered near the Oslo Opera House, its magnificent structure reflecting on the still waters, a thought crossed my mind. How did I get here? I began retracing the steps of my life, from the highs of high school with Lyria to the lows of her betrayal and Juna's confession. The more I thought, the more I felt trapped in a cage of my own making. My heart yearned for connection, but my mind was too scarred to trust again. Sitting on the edge of the fjord, watching the water ripple gently, I wondered if there was any way out. Any way to rebuild, to trust, to love again. Reddit. I'm stuck in this loop of pain and isolation. How do I pull myself out? How do I find myself again amidst this turmoil? Edit. Reading your messages of support and empathy has been a glimmer of hope. I never realized how many of you have faced similar heartaches. Maybe there's light at the end of this dark tunnel. I'll keep pushing through, one step at a time. Reddit. This will likely be my last update. The weight of everything has settled heavily on me, and the biting chill of an Oslo winter mirrors the coldness I feel within. The snow began to fall softly as I made my way to the fjord. Each flake seemed to absorb the ambient city lights, transforming the dark night into a luminescent wonderland. As mesmerizing as it was, the beauty couldn't mask the piercing cold. Standing at the edge, the water looked dark and inviting. I watched as tiny snowflakes met the surface, their brief existence melting away. Much like the fleeting moments of happiness I'd experienced, I couldn't help but draw parallels between the tranquil yet treacherous icy waters and my life's journey. There was a deceptive beauty to it all. The love, the betrayal, the heartbreak. From the passionate days of youth in Tromsø with Lyria, to the dark twists and turns that life threw at us. I wanted answers. I yearned for closure, some sign that the pain and confusion would eventually make sense. But sometimes, life doesn't give us the closure we seek. Sometimes love stories don't have fairy tale endings. As the snow piled on, the cold seeped deeper into my bones. A numbness began to take over, first my fingers, then my heart. Maybe this was how it was meant to end, not with a bang, but with the silent, cold embrace of an Oslo winter night. For those reading, please remember, life is complex and unpredictable. Cherish the moments, learn from the heartbreaks, and always seek help when you feel lost. Edit. If anyone out there feels this way, please talk to someone. Life has its ups and downs, but you never have to face them alone. There are helplines and communities ready to support and listen.
Story number 2.
Hey Reddit, I never thought I'd be here sharing this, but here we go. My name's Cade, born and bred in the Windy City. I've always been the kind of guy who sees the glass half full, you know? It's this outlook that led me to meet Zarya, the most beautiful, vivacious woman I've ever known. I met her at a local Chicago jazz bar, and the moment I laid eyes on her, it felt like the universe was pointing at her and whispering, "That's the one for you." We hit it off immediately, and the rest, as they say, was history. We had our share of ups and downs, but we always felt like we were meant for each other. Our friends even called us the Dream Team. Fast forward to one summer evening. We're at a family BBQ at my parents' house. My parents had this huge backyard, perfect for these gatherings, with fairy lights strung all around, and a smell of grilled burgers wafting through the air. Everything felt right. Mom was chatting with some relatives, my younger sister was chasing her kids, and I was manning the grill with a cold beer in hand. But then I noticed it. Across the yard, Zarya was talking to my dad, Mr. Granger. Nothing unusual about that, right? They'd always been friendly. But this time, it was different. They stood a little too close, their voices just a whisper, heads inclined toward one another, almost sharing a secret. Every time I tried to approach, they'd suddenly break apart, laughing off whatever they were talking about. I brushed it off at first, thinking, "Cade, you're just being paranoid." But as the evening went on, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Their secret exchanges kept gnawing at the back of my mind. And you know what's crazy? That tiny suspicion, that little seed of doubt, was about to change everything. Okay, Reddit, you won't believe what happened next. A couple of weeks after the BBQ incident, my birthday rolls around. Now, birthdays in our household are a big deal. Zarya and I always go all out for each other. Last year, she had taken me on a surprise weekend getaway to a cabin up in Wisconsin, and it was honestly one of the best weekends of my life. So, this year, I'm up early, the smell of coffee filling our apartment, anticipating what surprise she might have in store. She walks into the kitchen with this mysterious grin and hands me a small envelope. I'm thinking, gift card, a sweet note, maybe tickets to that concert I mentioned wanting to go to? But boy, was I off the mark. I tear open the envelope, and there it is, a ticket to Paris. Paris, the city of love. I mean, who wouldn't want to go, right? But here's the kicker. It's just one ticket, for me, alone. My eyes dart up to meet hers, searching for an explanation. Zarya, sensing my confusion, quickly says, "Babe, you've been so stressed with work lately. I just thought you could use some alone time to relax and explore. Paris has so much art, history, and culture. You'll love it. Don't get me wrong, the idea of wandering around Paris, sipping on coffee at quaint cafes, and visiting all those iconic spots was enticing. But why alone? Why wouldn't she want to share this with me? Every romantic movie scene set in Paris flashed through my mind, and I couldn't fathom experiencing it without her by my side. I tried to voice my concerns. Z, it's Paris. Shouldn't we experience it together? But she just brushed them aside, saying she had commitments she couldn't get out of, and she really wanted me to have this trip for myself. Read it? I was torn. On one hand, it was an incredibly generous gift. On the other, my gut told me something was up. I had so many questions swirling in my head, but I tried to focus on the positive. Little did I know, this gift was just the beginning of a whirlwind of events. All right, Reddit. Strap in because things started getting really weird when I landed in Paris. So there I am, standing outside the airport, looking at the city before me with a mix of excitement and apprehension. I decided to give Zaria a call, letting her know I arrived safely and to hear her voice, but all I got was her voicemail. No big deal, I thought. Maybe she's just busy, and I'll catch her later. My first day was a blur, seeing the Eiffel Tower up close, wandering around Montmartre, indulging in delicious pastries. But every time I tried to capture a moment, whether it was a picture or a quick video, I felt this pang of loneliness, wishing Zaria was there to share it with me. Throughout the day, I attempted to call her multiple times, but either she didn't pick up or the conversations were weirdly short. The few times I did get through, Zaria sounded distracted, like there was something going on in the background. Her answers were short, her tone distant, and she always seemed in a rush to hang up. Sorry, babe, super busy right now, talk later. And then click. It wasn't like her at all. One evening, after a beautiful Seine River cruise, I tried calling her again. She picked up, and I could hear faint murmurs and laughter in the background. Trying to keep the conversation light, I said, "Sounds like you're having a little party over there without me." Her response? A sudden silence followed by a quick, "Oh, just some TV, nothing special. I gotta go. Love you." Click. Now, Reddit. I'm not usually the jealous type, but my mind raced back to that summer evening and the hushed whispers between Zaria and my dad, Mr. Granger. An unease settled in the pit of my stomach, gnawing at me. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was going on, but I didn't want to jump to conclusions without evidence. My dream trip to Paris started feeling less like a dream and more like a confusing nightmare. I was surrounded by romance and beauty, but my mind was miles away, trying to piece together a puzzle that was becoming more complex by the minute. I had a few more days left in Paris, but with each passing hour, my worry and suspicion grew. The city's charm couldn't distract me from the nagging thoughts plaguing my mind. On a whim, I thought, why not head back early and surprise Zaria? Maybe all these concerns were in my head, and seeing her would clear the air. So, without letting Zaria know, I changed my flight and found myself heading back to Chicago sooner than expected. The entire flight, I played out different scenarios in my head. Maybe I'd walk in on a surprise party, or maybe Zaria would be thrilled and relieved to see me. The cab ride from the airport to our apartment felt like the longest journey ever. The city lights of Chicago blurred past as my heart raced with anticipation. I quietly let myself into our apartment, hoping to genuinely surprise her. But nothing, and I mean nothing, could have prepared me for what I saw. As I pushed open the door to our bedroom, I froze. There, in a moment that seemed straight out of a twisted movie, were Zaria and Mr. Granger, my own father, looking, well, far too intimate for comfort. The room echoed with their startled gasps. Time stood still. My mind struggled to process the scene in front of me. The love of my life and my father. It was a gut punch, a betrayal I'd never even considered. The weight of my earlier suspicions crashed down on me with a cruel clarity. Zaria scrambled to her feet, her face pale, her eyes wide with shock and fear. Mr. Granger, on the other hand, looked as if he'd been caught with his hand in the cookie jar, guilty but almost smug about it. All I could muster, my voice shaking, was, "How could you?" Before anyone could answer, I turned on my heels and left, the image of their betrayal seared into my memory. That night, Reddit, my world shattered into a million pieces, and I was left trying to figure out how and why it all went wrong. The morning after the horrendous discovery, I was a mess. My phone was flooded with missed calls and messages from both Zaria and Mr. Granger. Despite the gut-wrenching image from last night, a part of me, maybe the naive, hopeful part, wanted an explanation, something that could make sense of it all. So, after taking a deep breath, I decided to confront them. I asked them to meet me at a neutral location, a quiet coffee shop downtown. As I waited, my heart pounding, I watched the rain pour down outside, mirroring the storm inside me. When they arrived, they looked almost coordinated. Their expressions were a mix of feigned surprise and concern. The conversation began with Zaria, her voice soft and shaky. "Cade, you've got it all wrong. I don't know what you think you saw, but it wasn't what it looked like." Mr. Granger chimed in, trying to sound fatherly and sincere. "Son, we were just comforting each other. Your Aunt Leela has been ill, and it's been tough for the family. We didn't want to burden you, especially with your trip." I sat there, stunned. They were turning the tables, making it seem like I was the one in the wrong, that my emotions and perceptions were flawed. "Are you seriously suggesting I imagined what I saw?" I retorted, my voice rising in disbelief. Zaria looked almost offended. "Cade, I love you. Why would I ever hurt you? You're probably jet-lagged, stressed, and you've misinterpreted a moment of comfort between family." The sheer audacity of their claims was mind-boggling. Here I was, raw and wounded, and they were trying to repaint reality, making me question my sanity. I felt like I was being sucked into a whirlwind of lies and manipulations. Their words, their denials, it was all gaslighting in its purest form. I stood up, my hands trembling. "I don't know what game you two are playing, but I'm not going to be a pawn in it." With that, I left, the weight of their betrayal and deceit pressing down on me. So, Reddit, just when I thought I hit rock bottom, I stumbled upon something that turned my world even more upside down. Days after our coffee shop confrontation, my emotions were a roller coaster. Part of me wanted to believe their story, while another part was consumed by doubt. In an attempt to find some sense of normalcy, I busied myself with cleaning the apartment. It was therapeutic in a way. Cleaning out the physical space felt like clearing out the emotional clutter in my mind. While organizing our bedroom, I stumbled upon a drawer I had rarely, if ever, looked into. As I rummaged through it, my hand brushed against a stack of envelopes hidden beneath some old scarves of Zaria's. Curiosity piqued. I took a closer look. The envelopes were addressed to Zaria but had no postal markings. That meant they were hand-delivered. And the sender's name? Mr. Granger. With a heavy heart, I braced myself for what I might find and began reading the first letter. What followed was a heart-wrenching dive into their secret world. Each letter was a testament to their illicit relationship, full of passionate expressions, recounting secret meetings, and shared memories that they believed no one else would ever know. One letter read, "Our stolen moments at the lake house last summer are etched into my heart. Whenever I close my eyes, I can still feel the warmth of your touch and the sound of our laughter echoing in the silent nights." Another detailed plans for them to meet up when I was away on business trips, with Mr. Granger writing, "Every second without you feels like an eternity, counting down the days until I can see you again." The truth was glaringly clear, and any last strand of denial was ripped away. The pain was unbearable, a mix of anger, betrayal, and heartbreak. The very foundation of my marriage and relationship with my father crumbled in front of my eyes. That evening, sitting on the floor surrounded by those damning letters, I realized that the life I thought I knew was nothing but a facade. The challenge now was to confront them, with undeniable proof in hand. With the letters in hand, I waited for Zaria to return home. My heart raced as I heard her key turn in the lock. She walked in, her face lighting up in a smile, but that quickly faded as she caught the grim look on my face and saw the letters spread out on the table. "Cade," she started, her voice trembling, but I cut her off. "Did you ever plan on telling me?" I questioned, my voice cold and emotionless. though inside I was screaming. Zarya sank into a chair, her eyes darting to the letters. Tears began streaming down her face. I don't even know where to begin, she whispered. You can start by telling me the truth, I snapped, my patience running thin. Taking a deep breath, she began. It all started innocently. You were away so often for work, and I felt alone. And Mr. Granger, he was just there. He listened, and one thing led to another. I couldn't believe my ears. So you're blaming this on me being away? On my job? The job that provided for us? For our home? Our life? No, Cade, she sobbed. I'm not blaming you. It's all on me. It's my mistake. I got lost, and before I realized, we were too deep into this. As much as I wanted to walk away, to shout, to scream, I found myself just sitting there, numb, trying to process her confession. Every word she uttered felt like a dagger to my heart. The woman I loved, my father, the betrayal, it was overwhelming. Rated in that moment, I felt a whirlwind of emotions. Anger, betrayal, sadness, and confusion swirled inside me. The trust we had built over years had shattered in an instant. I'm so sorry, Cade, she whispered, her voice choked with tears. But apologies felt hollow. Nothing could undo the hurt and the damage. That night, our home, once filled with laughter and love, was steeped in a deafening silence, punctuated only by the occasional sniffle or sigh. Hey Reddit, the saga continues, and I never imagined the revelations I'd uncover next. Needing some space and fresh perspective, I decided to visit my mother, Mrs. Granger, in New York. Maybe she could offer some insight or at the very least a comforting embrace. I booked a last-minute flight, and the next day I found myself amidst the bustling streets of the Big Apple. My mother lived in a quaint brownstone in Brooklyn. I hadn't informed her of my sudden visit, hoping the element of surprise would allow us some genuine bonding time. When she opened the door and saw me, her face lit up with a mix of surprise and delight. "Cade, what a wonderful surprise!" she exclaimed, pulling me into a warm hug. As we settled into her cozy living room, sipping on some herbal tea, she noticed the heaviness in my eyes. "What's troubling you, sweetie?" she asked with genuine concern. Taking a deep breath, I began recounting the entire sordid tale. As I spoke, I watched her expressions shift, surprise, disbelief, and finally, heartbreak. When I finished, she took a moment, looking out the window, gathering her thoughts. "Cade," she began softly. "I never wanted to admit it, even to myself. But I've always had this nagging feeling that your father had a wandering eye. There were late-night calls, hushed conversations, and many unexplained absences. But I never, in my wildest dreams, imagined it would be with Zarya." My heart sank. The realization that my mother had endured her own set of suspicions and betrayals made the situation even more tragic. We sat in silence for a while, the weight of our shared pain forming an unspoken bond between us. Mrs. Granger finally broke the silence, her voice firm. "You deserve better than this, Cade. We both do. It's high time we confronted your father and sought the closure we need." That evening, Reddit, amidst the New York skyline, I felt a mix of emotions, pain, betrayal, but also a newfound determination. Armed with my mother's support, I was ready to face Mr. Granger and demand the truth. While still in New York, I decided to meet up with an old friend from college, Loxley. We had lost touch over the years, but reconnected through social media a few months back. A meetup seemed like a good distraction, considering everything. We decided to grab coffee at a quirky little cafe in Greenwich Village. As soon as I walked in, Loxley, with his signature wild curls and infectious smile, waved me over. After a warm embrace and initial catch-up, he noticed the storm cloud over my face. "Man, you look like you've been through the ringer," he remarked, concern evident in his eyes. I hesitated for a moment, then thought, "What the hell?" and spilled everything. His expression shifted from surprise to recognition. Once I finished, he took a deep breath, looking uneasy. "Cade, I didn't know how to bring this up, especially with everything you've been through. But I've seen Zarya and Mr. Granger together, multiple times." My heart sank further. "What? Why didn't you tell me?" He ran his hand through his curls, looking distressed. I know. I should have, but Man, I didn't want to be the one to bring you such heartbreak. I hoped I was just misinterpreting things, but with everything you've told me, it's clear I wasn't. The initial shock gave way to gratitude. Loxley, seeing my distress, put a reassuring hand on my shoulder. Look, we've been through thick and thin, right? I'm here for you. Whatever you need. Even if it's just to vent or have a drinking buddy. His words were a balm to my wounded soul. Amidst all the betrayal and chaos, having someone on my side offering genuine support meant the world. That evening, as we walked the vibrant streets of New York, reminiscing about our college days, I felt a glimmer of hope. Despite the darkness, I had allies, people who cared, and perhaps, just perhaps, I'd find a way to navigate this storm. I hit rock bottom. I found myself dragging my feet into a therapist's cold office in the heart of Manhattan, a place I once swore I'd never go to. Dr. Elowin's reputation preceded her, the hard-hitting therapist with zero sugarcoating. Her stark office, all sharp lines and neutral tones, did nothing to ease the knot in my stomach. She sat behind a sleek desk, her icy blue eyes sizing me up, a challenge in her gaze. "Speak," she commanded rather than asked. I spilled it all, raw and unfiltered. To my surprise, she didn't offer the comforting nods or the gentle, "I understand," I expected. Instead, she listened, her gaze never wavering, making me feel like a specimen under a microscope. Once my tale of betrayal was out, she leaned back, her expression inscrutable. "Cade, life's brutal. People betray, but wallowing won't get you anywhere." I bristled. "Easy for you to say. You're not the one being stabbed in the back." She leaned in, her voice firm. "Then pull the knife out. Decide if Zaria and your father are worth the pain or if they're dead weight. Can you trust them again? If not, cut them off. It's survival." It was harsh, brutal, even. But amidst the sting of her words, I felt a spark of anger, a fiery determination. Maybe it was time to stop playing the victim and take control. By the end of our intense session, I stepped out into the Manhattan chaos feeling invigorated. Dr. Elowin's brutally honest words resonated. It's survival, and I was ready to fight. Reddit, confronting Zaria was a storm, but facing my father? That was a hurricane. The following evening, I stood outside my parents' brownstone in Brooklyn, my heart pounding like a trapped bird. I took a deep breath, reminding myself why I was there. I needed answers, and no amount of dread would stop me. The moment I walked in, the tension was palpable. Mr. Granger sat in the living room, whiskey in hand, while the TV played some forgotten news. He looked up, surprise evident in his eyes. "Cade, what are you—" "No pleasantries," I interrupted, my voice steely. "We need to talk." For a moment, there was a standoff. Then, with a heavy sigh, he switched off the TV. "Fine, let's get this over with." I wasted no time, throwing the letters I found onto the coffee table. "Explain." He glanced at the letters, his expression darkening. Then, shockingly, he chuckled. "Ah, so you've discovered our little secret." "Secret? Dad, you betrayed me. With my wife," I shouted, my anger boiling over. He took a long sip of his whiskey, then smirked. "It takes two, you know. Zaria wasn't exactly an unwilling participant." My blood ran cold. "Are you trying to put the blame on her?" He leaned forward, a sly grin on his face. "Cade, open your eyes. If she could do this with me, what's stopping her from doing it with anyone else? Maybe she already has." I reeled from his words, rage and hurt mixing in a toxic cocktail. "You're my father. How could you do this?" He shrugged, the epitome of indifference. "Life happens, son. People get bored. Opportunities arise." I felt a deep revulsion I'd never felt before. This wasn't the father I grew up admiring. This was a stranger, an enemy. "You're dead to me," I hissed, my voice laced with venom. Without another word, I stormed out, leaving behind the shattered remains of a father-son bond that could never be mended. Hey, Reddit. I thought things couldn't get any more complicated, but the universe apparently had other plans. A few days after the confrontation with my father, I walked into the house we once called home, to an unsettling silence. Usually, Zaria's presence filled the rooms, but now a cold emptiness gripped the space. On the dining table, amidst memories of shared meals and laughter, lay a single thick envelope with my name on it. My heart sank. With trembling hands, I opened it. Zariah's handwriting, which I'd come to know so well, flowed across multiple pages. Dear Cade, if you're reading this, it means I've left Chicago. Before you jump to conclusions or feel a fresh wave of anger, please hear me out. Our love story was real, Cade. The late-night talks, the laughter, the dreams we built together. None of it was a lie. But somewhere along the way, I lost myself. The loneliness when you were away, the vulnerability, and the twisted attention from your father. It all created a storm I couldn't navigate. I'm not saying this to justify what I did, but I hope it sheds some light on the why. I never meant to hurt you. I realize now that in trying to fill a void, I created a chasm between us that may never be bridged. And for that, I am truly, deeply sorry. You deserve happiness, love, and above all, trust. I've come to see that by staying, I might become a constant reminder of betrayal, pain, and broken promises. So I'm stepping away, giving you the space you need to heal, to rebuild. Please know that my love for you was, and always will be, genuine. Maybe one day, when the wounds have faded, we can find a way to be in each other's lives, even if it's not in the way we once imagined. Wishing you peace and healing, Zariah. Tears blurred my vision as I finished reading. A cocktail of emotions surged through me: anger, pain, loss, and a heartbreaking longing for what we once had. The house, our memories, they all felt haunted now. With every step, echoes of our past taunted me. And as night fell, I sat amidst the deafening silence, clutching the letter, grappling with the magnitude of the loss. After reading Zariah's letter, I was a mess. I roamed the empty rooms of our home, the walls echoing her words and our shared memories. On a particularly sleepless night, I stumbled across her old phone while clearing out some of her belongings. The battery was still alive, and against my better judgment, I unlocked it. The latest messages were from a name I didn't recognize: Rune. Hey beautiful, miss you already. Last night was magical, can't wait to see you again. My heart raced as I scrolled, each message more intimate than the last. They spoke of secret meetings, stolen moments, and memories I knew nothing about. Memories that happened while we were still together. The weight of it all crashed down on me. I felt nauseated, a raw, jagged pain piercing through. First my father, and now this, Rune, some unknown man who shared secret moments with my wife while I was left in the dark. I tried to process it all. Was our entire marriage a sham? How many more betrayals would surface? How much more could I take before breaking entirely? I hurled the phone across the room, watching it shatter against the wall, much like the remnants of my faith in love. I felt robbed, not just of my trust, but of my ability to believe in genuine relationships. The wound from my father's betrayal was still fresh, and this new revelation felt like salt on it. Sinking to the floor, I let out a guttural scream, the pain, anger, and betrayal pouring out. The walls of our once happy home now felt like a prison, trapping me in a nightmare I couldn't escape from. After everything with Zariah and those soul-crushing revelations, Chicago became suffocating. Every alley, every diner, every park bench felt like it was mocking me with memories. The house, once filled with laughter and dreams, felt haunted. It became a constant reminder of my broken heart and the shattered illusions of love. I had to get out, so I sold it. The process was numbing, seeing strangers walk through, judging the remnants of my past, but it sold. And with a heavy heart, I packed what was left of my life. I'd heard of Asheville. It wasn't the cheerful allure of a small town that drew me in, but its promise of anonymity. I needed a place where no one knew my name, my story, or the weight of the baggage I carried. The first weeks were rough. I had this naive hope that a change of scenery would change everything inside me. But pain, it turns out, doesn't care about postcodes. Nights became a blur of insomnia and echoing silences. The house felt too big, too empty, the mountains too quiet, and the town too unfamiliar. I tried to blend in, took solitary walks, visited local bars where I'd often find myself staring into the amber depths of my drink, searching for answers that weren't there. The locals attempted to be friendly, but I mostly kept to myself. The less they knew, the fewer the chances of pitying looks or awkward conversations. Writing used to be my escape. Now every word felt forced, every sentence a reminder of the story I was trying to forget. So I stopped. Let the pages gather dust and the pen run dry. It wasn't all darkness, though. I did find solace in the vastness of nature, the enormity of the mountains, the never-ending forests. They made my problems feel minuscule. Not gone, but bearable. I wish I could wrap this up with a hopeful message, Reddit. But life isn't always about neat endings or silver linings. Sometimes it's just about surviving, taking it one breath at a time, and hoping the next day is a tad bit easier than the last. Hello again, Reddit. This will be my last post. The weight of betrayal hasn't eased, and Asheville, though distant from my past, brings no magic cure. Each day is a battle, and I'm constantly reminded that healing isn't linear. But here's the thing, life moves on, whether we're ready or not. I'm learning to find small moments of peace, brief respites from the chaos within. Some days are better, some are worse. I don't know what the future holds. But for now, I'm here, trying. Maybe that's all we can do. Thank you for being a part of my journey. Signing off.